Hey guys, Suze here, back with another Keto Dinner Ideas video, and today we are showing you how to make keto soup recipes 4 ways. All of these low-carb soups are perfect for doing your weekly keto meal prep. They're all easy to throw together, have in the refrigerator, heat up, have leftover for keto lunches all week long. If you're new here, we make keto cooking videos every single week. I'd love to have you hit that subscribe button and join our crew. Let's get into the video. First up, we made this awesome keto cabbage soup. This original recipe is from Ketogasm, which of course I'll have a link down below. I did adapt it quite a bit just to make it easier on me and more to my liking. I love this recipe because it's actually 10 servings, so it's perfect to meal prep with and have in the refrigerator to heat left over all week long. So to start with, in a large pot over medium heat, I just have 2 pounds of lean ground beef, and I'm not going to drain this after I brown it, so I did go ahead and use about, I think, 88% lean on this. And I'm just using my handy dandy meat chopper upper. I always have linked in the description box down below to break this apart while I brown it. And I've been told by a couple subscribers you can also find versions of this at Dollar Tree and Dollar General. After my meat's about halfway through browning, I am just adding a half a teaspoon sea salt to it, as well as a half a teaspoon black pepper, and then continuing to get in there and break it apart and brown it. Adding a third of a cup of diced up white onion to that and working it into our ground beef as well, before adding 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, and then I'm adding a whole can of Rotel, which is just tomato and chile blend, and I did not drain this. I just added juice and all. And then one of the major changes is she uses bouillon cubes in her recipe. I'm just going to skip all of that and use 1 32-ounce box, so 4 cups of beef broth. And I think this is actually full sodium beef broth. I usually use low sodium. Stirring that all around before adding some cabbage to this. Now, you could just chop up a head of cabbage, but to make things easier for me, I'm using 2 10-ounce bags of angel hair shredded green cabbage, and that's just straight plain cabbage. You could definitely use a tricolor blend with this if you wanted to. And I'm stirring this from the bottom to just kind of tuck all of that cabbage down in there so it can get nice and tender, and bringing that up to a boil. And after I do, I'm just putting the lid on this, and I'm just going to let this simmer for about 45 minutes. This is what it looks like after it is done cooking. And of course, these flavors are going to just marinate together even more in the refrigerator all week long. And it's one of those recipes that gets better and better, I think, as the week goes. And here it is, served up. Absolutely delicious. Again, easy to cut in half if you want to make a smaller batch of this. Highly recommend giving it a try. Next up, we're trying this keto broccoli cheddar soup from Hey Keto Mama. Oh my gosh, I don't even like broccoli that much. I mean, I eat it because it's healthy and, it's good for a keto diet, but this was so flipping good. So in a large pot, I added 2 tablespoons of butter over medium heat. After that was nice and melted, I'm adding between 1/8 and 1/4 of a cup of diced white onion and just stirring that around and cooking that for a couple minutes to give it a head start before adding a half a teaspoon of minced garlic. I'm just going to stir that around for 30-45 seconds more. To this, I'm adding 2 cups of chicken broth, and I'm adding 1 cup of chopped up broccoli, and I buy the organic bags of frozen broccoli from Costco. They're nice, big, healthy florets, and I just thawed one of those and chopped some of that up. Left some bigger chunks and then more fine chunks and added that. To that, I'm adding a half a teaspoon salt and a half a teaspoon ground black pepper, and just combining this all really well before tossing in 1 ounce of softened cream cheese. In her recipe, she uses a little less and melts it in the microwave first, but I found just adding it softened straight to the pot and breaking it apart with a whisk was fine and saved me a little bit of trouble. After that's nice and melted in there, I'm adding 1/4 of a cup heavy whipping cream and just mixing this all around really well, bringing it to a boil, and then cutting the heat off and adding in 1 cup of shredded extra sharp cheddar cheese and just mixing this in really well until it's nice and combined and melted. And then I'm sprinkling a half a teaspoon xanthan gum on top, and I always like to let mine sit for about a minute before I get in there and whisk it in. And I find that xanthan gum, for me, just mixes into the whole pot really well. I don't have to mix it into a separate little bit of liquid like you would with cornstarch or something. After that's all whisked in, we're all done and ready to go. Like, super easy and simple. Here it is served up, topped it with a little bit of crumbled bacon that I just fried up in the air fryer and another pinch of that shredded sharp cheddar cheese. This was so good, and I don't think I've ever liked broccoli soup in my life, and I loved this. It actually tasted more like potato soup without the potatoes, and I'm here for that. The only bad thing about this recipe is it only made 4 servings, which was perfect for dinner, and when we reheated it leftover, it was just as good the next day. Next up, we made a version of jalapeno popper soup from ruled.me. Original recipe linked down below. I pretty much changed everything about this recipe except for the seasoning blend. So in a large pot, I took a tablespoon of bacon grease, and over medium to medium high heat, I've got that heating up, and I added 1/4 of a cup of minced up jalapenos. It's the equivalent of 3 jalapenos. I used jarred sliced, so it also has the seeds in there, which makes this extra spicy. And I'm just stirring those around for a little bit before adding in 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. And again, just stirring that around and cooking it for about 30 to 45 seconds more. To this, I am adding 4 cups of chicken broth. It's just 1 32-ounce container, and it is reduced sodium. On our seasoning blend, we're adding a teaspoon onion powder, 1 teaspoon dried cilantro, a teaspoon Cajun seasoning, then I'm adding a whole teaspoon sea salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of ground black pepper, and whisking that all together really well. Now to this, I'm adding 3 cups, and I mean, it's really packed in here, of shredded chicken. I took like a 2-pound bag of chicken tenders and just cooked them in my Instant Pot and shredded them. The recipe calls for deboning chicken thighs and baking them and cooking the bones down and all of that mess. That was too much work for me. I'm sure it tastes delicious the way they made it though, but too much work for me. So if you want dark meat in it, which will make it more flavorful, go ahead and add some of that. But for convenience sake, and because I prefer eating the white meat, I just made it with chicken tenders, shredded them with an electric mixer, put it in there. Now once I mix that all together, I'm bringing this up to a boil and then turning the heat down. I think I just turned it off at that point, adding in 6 ounces of softened cream cheese and a 1/2 cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese, and just getting my whisk in there and breaking that apart and mixing this in really well until it is nice and melted and combined. And there you go. Plated it up with a little bit of crumbled bacon, some extra sharp shredded cheddar cheese, and a couple of jalapenos that missed the mincing process. This was extra spicy, very delicious, very thick because of all of the chicken I added. It's definitely more like a stew than a liquidy soup, and I loved it. It's very, very, very filling. Last up this week, one of my favorites. This is inspired by No Bun Please. It's a zuppa toscana soup. I changed the recipe up a whole lot, so make sure you make notes of that if you decide to click on that and use it. To start with, I took a large pot over medium to medium high heat. I added 1 pound of mild Italian ground sausage. Make sure you check your carbs carefully on your sausage, as they tend to sneak a lot in there on you. And I'm breaking that apart with my meat chopper upper to start browning it, adding about 1/4 of a cup chopped onion to it, as well as 1 heaping teaspoon of minced garlic. And then I'm using my meat chopper upper to just break that apart and really work those onions and that garlic into our meat. To that, I'm adding 4 cups of chicken broth, and this is just a full sodium box of chicken broth here, along with 2 cups of water. Now the original recipe, they reversed those, but they did like 4 cups of water and 2 cups of broth, but I thought it would taste better this way. To that, I am adding 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, along with 1 teaspoon of sea salt and 1/2 teaspoon ground black pepper, and then I'm just stirring this all together really well before adding a 12-ounce bag of frozen chopped kale and 2 cups of frozen cauliflower rice. This is just convenience for me, along with 1/4 a cup of butter. Now I'm just popping that butter down in there and stirring this all together really well. I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a boil and pop the lid on and cut it down to medium low, and I let this simmer for about 45 minutes. After it was done, I added a tablespoon of cream, as the recipe said, and thought, hey, maybe I want some more in there. So I added 1 more tablespoon of heavy whipping cream to that. stirred it in really well. I have the heat off at this point, and we are ready to serve it up. And here's what it looks like in the bowl. This was so delicious. I feel like most zuppa Toscano soups are more brothy and less kale, but I love incorporating kale into recipes. I feel like it always gives me a little bit of extra energy when I eat it, and so there you go. I wanted this to be very substantive for me, especially since I would be eating it all week long. I enjoyed all of these soups. It's very hard to pick a favorite this week as they were all very, very good, but comment down below and let me know which one is your favorite, which one looks the best to you. If you're not already subscribed to our channel, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with any of your friends trying to follow a keto diet, live a keto lifestyle. The more eyes we get on it, the more motivated I am to keep making them. For all of you that watch week after week and comment and interact with me, thank you. I appreciate every single one of you so much. Till next time, bye guys.